The largemouth bass world record is the most sought-after fishing record in the world. Of all the freshwater fish species available to fish in the United States, largemouth bass are pursued by more anglers than all the other fish species combined, with different organizations offering large cash rewards over the years, claiming the title of largest largemouth bass ever caught. Can also be very lucrative. With those kinds of incentives and the fact that there are millions of anglers hitting the water every year, one would think it's only a matter of time before a new record-setting bass is caught. But time seems to be on the side of the current world record holders so far. Think you have what it takes to haul the next record? So do I, but you need the right tools for the job. Check out USA Bass Tackle, either on Amazon or through their website using the links below. Appreciate your support for the channel. Ready? Let's go. Number 1. George Perry at 22 pounds, 4 ounces. The 22-pound, 4-ounce behemoth that currently holds the world record was caught some 89 years ago by George Perry on June 2nd, 1932, from Montgomery Lake in Georgia. A haze of folklore surrounds this fish in that day. Tales of how this trip developed have been passed around for nearly 90 years. Of how Perry and a buddy opted to spend the day fishing as the fields of the farm dried from recent rains. With only one rod between them, and in a time when food was scarce and the idea of just fishing for fun seemed ludicrous, the duo was on a meat run and found enough fish in one bite to feed Perry's family of 6 for 2 days. Some tall tales for sure, but an unsettling thought for most anglers these days. That this fish fell victim to catch and release in the grease. But regardless of one's personal convictions towards eating a bass, that's the way the story goes. This is the least photographed, most talked about fish of all time. In a land before cell phones, we had but a few glimpses of the biggest bass ever officially certified by the International Fish and Game Administration, the governing body of world records and such. The IFGA came along 7 years after Perry's catch, but the bass was grandfathered in as the largest of all time at the time, and the record held for 77 years. Or has it held for 89 years? Is it still even holding? Let me explain the confusion. Number 2. Manabu Kurita, 22 pounds, 4 ounces. The Japanese angler Manabu Kurita made the best run so far at taking down Georgia's giant. Some would even argue Kurita accomplished the monumental task, and they could be right. On July 2nd, 2009, while fishing Lake Biwa in Japan, Kurita caught a 22-pound, 5-ounce largemouth bass. That's right, 22 pounds, 5 ounces. An ounce heavier than Perry's record. But here's the catch. To officially become an undisputed new world record, IFGA requires a fish to be a full 2 ounces heavier. That's brutal. So officially, the two are tied at the heaviest of all time. And what do you think about that? They should give him the record. Lake Biwa, an already famed fishery, has received a ton of attention since Kurita's catch. This monster and the fishery are particularly interesting because largemouth bass isn't native to Japan. Instead, the fish were stocked there in several fisheries over the years. It appears the habitat is suited for growing big ones. Number 3. Robert Crupi at 22 pounds. Only one other bass has officially broken the 22-pound mark. Robert Crupi pulled a bass weighing 22 pounds even out of Castaic Lake in California on March 12, 1991. Another famed fishery. Castaic is responsible for several monster bass, as is Robert Crupi. Both names will pop up again in a minute. But first, this 22-pounder was caught and released by Crupi as another angler, Jeff Ackerman, looked on. When asked about keeping the fish or releasing it, Crupi stated, "Before I even weighed the fish, I knew that as healthy as she was, I was going to release her." Crupi, a frequent visitor of Castaic at the time, knew the importance of keeping this fish in the gene pool if the world record was going to come from Castaic. It hasn't yet, but no telling how many double-digit bass have been spawned through the lineage of Crupi's 22-pounder in the last 2 decades. Number 4. Raymond Easley, 21 pounds, 3 ounces. Raymond Easley brought the next heavyweight contender to the scales in 1980 out of Oakview in California. At the time of Easley's catch, this was the closest anyone had come to Perry's world record, Though the bass didn't topple the overall world record, it did set and still holds the record for the men's 8-pound test line. Astonishing to think a fish of this size was hauled in with just 8-pound test. Number 5. Robert Crupi. Again, at 21 pounds. Robert Crupi makes his reappearance to round out the top 5 with a 21-pound bass he pulled from Castaic Lake on March 9th, 1990. The only angler with 2 bass in the top 10. It's apparent that Crupi can catch the big bass. Give that man his props. In all, Crupi holds 4 world records, having spent the better part of a lifetime chasing giants. And there's nothing like the feeling of pulling in a giant bass. Where do you think the next 20-plus pounder is going to come from? If anywhere. Can't wait to find out. Until next time, appreciate y'all. And tight lines, B's and G's.